Brought to you by BedroomBattlefields.com, this is the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. Welcome to the show, Cameron. Do you go by Cameron? Cammy? Cam?
Cam.
What's your
Cam
preference?
is good.
Cam.
Fewer syllables, yeah.
Good. See, I get called Matt a lot, but I prefer to go with Matthew. Like, I'm not totally precious about it, but folk will often just like immediately shorten my name without asking. And I wouldn't ever say I'm offended about it, but I mean, I'm bringing it up here, so it obviously needles me in some small way.
Yeah, well, in 8th grade, a guy named Matt was messing around with me and sent me to the hospital, messed up my ankle real bad. So I won't call you Matt because I got bad memories of Matt. People named Matt.
Yeah.
So.
Good. I will strike a deal on that front then. So, it's good to have you on the show at last. You're a great member of the Discord community, and I invited you on. I just wanted to do the old hobby origin story, talk about a couple of other things that were going on as well. So, first things first, Cam, what's on the old painting table at the moment?
I just finished up 3 Famir for the original Hero Quest game, and so I've been working hard on getting all those painted because my daughter is 6 years old now, and that's about the age where Hero Quest is a game that you can introduce your kids to. So I've been trying to get all those painted. All I've got left is the heroes and the gargoyle now. And I guess the terrain if I want to paint up all the furniture and everything, which I probably will. So I'm hoping to get that completed by the end of the year at least.
So is that the newer Hero Quest?
No, the old one.
So how are you finding painting those miniatures?
I'm enjoying it, but they're definitely less refined miniatures than everything else that I paint. You know, the molds are pretty simple. There's massive mold lines on them. It's easier in some ways to paint models that have got more definition and detail in them because you can use other tools like dry brushing and contrast paints and stuff like that to get the results you want. But with these, there's broad open spots. Like a lot of the models have their hands in a fist. And where the thumb and index finger curl up, you would expect to see a lot of crevices and stuff, places where you could get highlights and details. But it's just, on these models, it's just a flat spot. So you have to figure out what to do in that area. But I don't hold myself to super high standards when I'm painting. I'm mostly just trying to get to, what people call a tabletop standard or something I'm happy with putting on the table and go from there. I'd rather have like 3 moderately well painted orcs rather than 1 perfectly painted orc, just so I can keep on making progress on what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I painted up a few of the Battle Masters. Like, I still had some of the Battle Masters kit from when I was wee, and I think there was an overlap with those in Hero Quest. I think the orcs were maybe the same, but I was trying to paint some of the Chaos Barbarian archers, which I've seen folk online do a really good job with, but the facial detail in that, there's not a lot there at all, and I was using the contrast and it just didn't really work for me. I mean, half the fact there is I'm not very good at painting, but it just I struggled with them just because of the lack of detail.
Yeah, the model for the elf character in Hero Quest, I see. And I think the barbarian also, a lot of times people won't even bother trying to paint the eyes. They just, leave it shaded instead of trying to actually put, whites of the eyes and some pupils on there because the detail's just not there.
It's just sockets, isn't it? Like just eye sockets. It's not even an eye there.
Yeah. So if you want an eye there, you pretty much got to manufacture it with the paint.
Do you paint eyes typically?
I do. In fact, when I first started painting miniatures for tabletop strategy games in college, everybody was really impressed by the fact that I could get a dot of red on the orc's eye without smearing it all over the place, which is a pretty low standard for excellence. in terms of painting miniatures, but everyone was like, "Wow, look at that! You got the eye on without smearing it across his face."
Yeah.
So that encouragement probably sucked me into it. Even quicker. People saying that they were impressed by that, which I'm really not impressed by. With myself doing that nowadays, but.
Would you paint eyes if you were painting a big block of troops, like a big regiment of, say, monopose infantry, or that? Would you still do the eyes?
Yeah, I'll still do the eyes. It's sort of a balance, I guess, on how much time you want to invest in it and how exactly how good you want it to look. But at this point, in I'm still able to paint the eyes with not too much difficulty. I got to wear reading glasses now when I do it, but I can still get it done. So it's worth it to me to do that.
Mm-hmm. What's your process for painting an eye? Just do the whites, do the pupil. Is that it, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I'll usually paint the white on the eyeball, and then I'll use Nuln oil or some kind of dark wash to put basically a black ring around that white eyeball, and then I brighten the white up again after the wash is dulled it up, and then I'll put a pupil on it. And that's the pupil. Some models I will try to get the pupil on, and some models I won't. But I feel like you kind of have to have it on any human or like dwarf or elf model, whereas like goblins and orcs, I can give them just a red eye and be happy with it because they look like evil glowing eyes. That makes sense to me. So sometimes I won't paint those with pupils.
Mm-hmm. Have you, talking about Hero Quest, have you played it with the wee lassie yet? Has she had a game yet, or?
No, I haven't. Last time I played it was decades ago, in fact. So once I get everything painted up, I'll do a test run through, a solo run through of it, so I can make sure I know what the rules are and everything, and then I'll put her and my girlfriend. My girlfriend collects board games, so I think I can get her to play. I'll get them started playing on it. One thing I have to do is I have to try to find some female versions of the heroes because my daughter will not want to play with male miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already gotten for the dwarf the Warhammer Fantasy Battle had a character named Queen Helga, and I got that model, so that's perfect if she wants to play a dwarf. But I'm still searching for suitable female adventurer models to paint up for her for that.
The copy of Hero Quest that you've got, is that your own from back in the day, or did you pick that up more recently?
No, when I played it, the copy that I played belonged to a friend of mine. I never owned it as a kid, and so I picked it up off of eBay. I think I paid about $100 for it, which seemed like a pretty good bargain to me, considering how many models there are in it, and it was complete. And it even had some character sheets filled up by a couple of kids who had played it 20, 30 years ago, whenever, and they were still in there. So that was kind of neat. Hope those folks are still adventuring now in their old age.
That's probably a good segue for dipping into the origin stories then, talking about playing Hero Quest back in the day. Like let's find out a bit more about when you encountered the hobby for the first time and how you started to sort of get into it.
I got into it through Dungeons and Dragons back in like 1984, I think. My parents took my brother and sister and I on a family vacation out to the Shenandoah Mountains to go camping. And my brother had gotten a copy of the Red Box beginner set for Dungeons and Dragons. It was a couple of red paperback books with I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's got a Larry Elmore drawing on the front of a guy attacking a dragon over his hoard. And I started reading that. So I guess I was about 8 years old when I first came across Dungeons and Dragons. And then we played that all the way. Gosh, we played it for a long time. Until I was an adult. I stopped playing like around college age. But my brother and our friends and everything used to play Dungeons and Dragons pretty much just about every weekend. And so I really enjoyed, one of the things I enjoyed about Dungeons and Dragons, other than, just sitting around and drinking root beer and eating pretzels and BSing with your friends, was generally during the game, you're going to draw a map on a board and use your miniatures to indicate, where your character is and where the goblins or whatever kobolds are. And I always really enjoyed that part of the game. And I didn't really paint any models back then. But in college, we were still playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was a new group of friends and my brother, and we went into a hobby store, a local hobby store called Gamers Headquarters. Everybody called it GHQ, which was a pretty big store, but it was absolutely filthy. The owners both smoked, and they had like 8 cats that they kept in the store. So everything in the store was covered with cigarette ash and, getting stained by smoke, and had cat hair and cat dander everywhere. It was just a disgusting place, but had all the gaming stuff we needed, and they had tables. And that's where I first came across Games Workshop miniatures. And I asked my brother, like, what the heck are these? And he explained to me, I was looking at an orc, a savage orc from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and he explained to me what it was, and he was kind of dismissive of it because it's not the right scale for all the other miniatures we used. We used mostly Ralph Artha miniatures, which are a smaller scale than Games Workshop. So he didn't want me to buy any of those, but eventually we ended up getting into those kind of games, tabletop strategy games. So
what year are we talking here?
That was when I was in college, was 1993, 94. So I played I guess we played Dungeons and Dragons for about 10 years, and we played other role-playing games like Call of Cthulhu was one of my other favorites, and we played Shadowrun and Cyberpunk. Bunch of different role-playing games, but we kind of transitioned to some tabletop strategy games like Man of War and we played 2nd edition 40K. We never played Fantasy Battle, but we played those in college while also still playing RPGs.
And was that you through the rest of the 90s? Like, how did it sort of pan out from there?
Yeah, it lasted until 97 when I graduated college with a bachelor's degree in English, and immediately went into construction after I graduated. Never used my degree for anything, which is what a lot of people do. But I went into construction, and then all of a sudden I've got rent to pay and bills to pay and cars to fix. And I noticed a lot of my friends that were still playing games like 40K and stuff were just blowing through money, and they had all the same bills that I did, and they were going into debt and running up credit cards for thousands of dollars to spend on these games, and it looked like a really lot of bad decision making, and I associated, which was silly at the time, but I associated the game with those bad decisions, guys going into debt and focusing on the wrong things. And so I got rid of everything at that point. I stopped playing RPGs. I gave away all my armies. I had a pretty big 2nd edition and Rogue Trader era orc army, whole bunch of dreadnoughts and stuff. Gave them all away. Got rid of my books. I had the Freebooters Manual and the orc Here We Go army book. Stuff that I would love to have back if I could get it back. But I essentially, I didn't bin it all, but I gave it away to a friend, and that was the end of it for me for a long time, until probably about when COVID came back around is when I really started getting into playing again.
Yeah. It sounds like you almost treated it like kicking a drug habit or that, like, get this stuff away from me, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it absolutely was, man. I still played in '97, after I got rid of everything, I still occasionally played RPGs. Like maybe once or twice a year, we could get together and make it happen with my group of friends. But yeah, that it essentially, that is what I did. Is I associated it with something bad, and I was afraid of it happening to me, so I got rid of everything and didn't get back into it until COVID, when I saw lots of other people on social media and everything, pulling their old stuff out of the attic and painting it while they didn't have anything else better to do.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. Was that the catalyst? I mean, apart from the whole global pandemic and lockdown thing, like, was it seeing people on social media doing this that tempted you back in then?
Yeah, it was, because my job didn't really change at all during COVID. So I was working the same amount. I didn't get sequestered away in my house or anything and have nothing to do. It was just seeing on Facebook and in social media, people, I just happened to see it somehow, it got put in my Facebook feed or whatever. And I thought, I've still got a lot of miniatures. I never got rid of, like, I had a Necromunda gang that I never got rid of, and I had a lot of Man of War ships that I didn't get rid of, or at least I had like one fleet, my Orc fleet, I never got rid of. And I knew my brother had a whole bunch of Man of War models, so I got those from him. But yeah, it's primarily just seeing on social media other people doing that, going back into the hobby because of lockdown.
So what were your very first steps then? Just get some old miniatures out? Like, did you have paints? Did you have to order them in or what?
Yeah, I had to go back to the store. I didn't have any paints left, so I had to do that from the ground up. Went to a local hobby store, got some brushes, got the basic paints that I thought I needed, and my brother had. He had all 3 box sets for Man of War, and so he was getting ready to sell those to a guy that I didn't know, and he just happened to text me and said, "Hey, I'm getting rid of these. Do you want to put dibs on them before I sell them?" And I said, "Yeah." And I got all 3 box sets. I gave him, I think, about $200 for it, which they're worth way more than that. But and the guy that he was going to sell it to was there at the store where we met. So I felt bad because I was basically just sneaking that stuff out from under this guy's nose right in front of him. But yeah, I got probably about with that purchase, I probably got about half of all of the Man of War miniatures that I needed, and started painting them up. I also, I fixed paint jobs on some models that I had botched, but yeah, it was pretty much starting from the ground up again.
What do you find? What's the difference between painting a boat versus painting a human? I mean, there's no eyeballs this time, but do you like painting boats?
Yeah, I don't suppose it's that much different. I don't focus on one game at a time. I'll paint HeroQuest for a month or two, and then I might paint a squadron of ships from Man of War, and then I might build some terrain. I go, I think most people probably do that. I drift from project to project, but I think I would say overall, I think boats are probably easier to paint than figures, because primarily because you don't have to worry about flesh tone on most boats. Flesh tone has always been something I've struggled with. I would say out of the HeroQuest models, the zombies have given me the most trouble, just getting the flesh tone right on them. But yeah, I'd say the ships, the biggest difference with the ships is that there's a lot more very small details to pick out, as opposed to painting humanoids.
Mm-hmm. Have you had a game of Man of War?
Oh yeah, matter of fact, I'm playing. I've got a game scheduled with one of the guys on your Discord on the 15th. I'm gonna use the Discord video channel to do that. And I played a bunch of games remotely, and earlier, I guess about 3 months ago, I went to a convention in Pennsylvania, which was about a 6-hour drive for me. But I ran a few games up there as a game master, and ran into another guy about my age that was running some games. So that was pretty neat. We had two people running Man of War at this historical gaming convention.
Did you find getting back into playing? Did you find the rules came back easy to you?
Yeah, I would say so, but I'm not. I don't consider myself an expert with the rules. I make a mistake, at least one mistake every time I play. So I've had me and Chris Snyder are two guys over at the Command and Command Discord who run remote games of Man of War on a fairly regular basis, and I hesitate to call myself an expert about it because I still miss rules and make rules mistakes. But as long as you are playing with somebody who's decent in terms of being a sportsman and understanding that some mistakes are going to be made, and it's mostly just about enjoying the game and seeing the game through to completion, then it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know that I've played a game and not made a mistake yet, but I always put it down to, well, I'm learning. I don't know when I'll actually achieve the point of being educated, but I'm learning. So, so you're getting regular games remotely. You're going to conventions and that. Have you ever managed to find anyone local to you that you could get the odd game with?
No, I used to. I've got some. I used to game pretty regularly with some local friends, but we had our gaming group kind of dissolved back in I think it was about 2008, and so I haven't really played locally any because I don't want to horn in on basically what I consider like their turf. I don't know. This is probably all pretty silly, but I don't want to go to a gaming store and basically use up space that they're using because they still play together and I'm not willing to play with them anymore. So I don't have anybody locally that I play with around here. And my girlfriend and my daughter, they live about 2.5 hours north of me. And the way my schedule works out, I work in Newport News, Virginia for about a week, and then I go up there for about a week and spend time with them. So, and they're up in Northern Virginia, which is a very densely populated area. So that's another thing that I want to get done this year is start going to some hobby stores up there. Because I met some guys at the convention in Pennsylvania who go to a hobby store that's real close to where my girlfriend lives. So I could probably and these are guys that they play Frostgrave and Mordheim, which are both games that I want to experiment with. I want to get some games in on that because they look interesting to me, and so I'll probably at some point set some time aside to spend the evening up there at that game store and maybe get those games in.
What happened to the guys who were spending thousands on the stuff? Like, are you still in touch with them at all?
Yeah, they didn't starve to death or anything. But no, I'm not really in touch with them anymore.
But they are still alive, and
yeah, they managed to raise kids and everything, so they kicked their habit enough, anyways, to make it through.
Aye, it's a funny one that that's obviously you're talking about this happening years ago, but it's still people still spend a lot of money today, obviously, and I've been kind of following with interest since I was late to the party, realising that the next Warhammer's coming out, and I've enjoyed a few podcasts I've been listening to about it, and I really enjoy the enthusiasm of hearing people preparing to just dive into this, and they're going to buy lots of stuff, and they've pre-ordered lots of stuff, and as much as like I enjoy the enthusiasm, it's totally not for me. Like, I'm not getting involved in it at all. But I suppose for a lot of folk, they maybe just like the thought that here is a supported game again, rather than the old games that folks play, because everyone's got a different sort of take on things, don't they? Some folks do just prefer to play something that is like in print and supported. So
Yeah, and I think a big part of that enthusiasm is the mention that they're going to give some measure of support to using the old miniatures, which I like seeing that enthusiasm from the guys like that, are our age and have a collection of orcs and goblins or Bretonians or whatever that aren't supported anymore, and they can't really play except by using the fourth edition or fifth edition whatever rules. So I think it's great that GW has made even that much effort, to create rules so that they can put those old models back on the table. I know they've said that a lot of them won't be legal for tournament play, which doesn't really affect me. I don't do tournaments, but still, I've enjoyed seeing that enthusiasm. I like the idea of these guys having more players to play with at the hobby stores and that sort of thing. If they've got rules that are official and up to date and everything, they can have another excuse for getting them on the table.
Yeah. Aye, I mean, talking about like tournaments and talking about spending loads of money and talking about getting on board with new products, that kind of segues into something that I'd published today that we were going to touch on as well, the Slow Hobbyist Manifesto. So did you say you'd given that a wee read earlier on?
Yeah, I did give it a read. I would, now maybe this is personal bias, but I identified pretty strongly with everything, all of those points, I think. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of the people in the Discord and some of the other Discords, pretty much anybody that's our age, I bet you a lot of them will identify with that. The nostalgia is a huge part of, it's a huge driving force in getting people to, collect these old miniatures and put paint to them and hopefully get them on the table again. So, yeah, I think it hit the nail on the head pretty well.
I'm glad you think so. You didn't have to say that just because you were on the podcast. You could have tore it up if you wanted. But for context for the listener, like I'll put a link to this post in the show notes. It's on bedroombattlefields.com. But yeah, the term slow hobbying was something I first heard a couple of years ago on an episode. It was Rick that was on. He was talking about the Ninth Age, and he mentioned this, and there had been a blog post on the Ninth Age forums, and it was one of the Ninth Age players or writers, I can't remember which, but talking about slow hobbying, and it's a term that kind of stuck with me. I had a look for the original blog post, and I don't think it's available anymore. It just wouldn't work for me, but I'd kind of been turning it over in my head, and I thought, I'm going to put something together, a bit tongue-in-cheek, it's a bit flowery, but
yeah, it's a little bucolic. Yeah, so you're right about that.
Yeah. Aye, so I mean, there's 9 points here. I'm not going to read it all at the listener because they could check it out. But yeah, number 1, a miniature agnostic approach. Number 2, the art of patience. Number 3, deep dive into rule sets. Number 4, resistance to hype. Number 5, nostalgia as a guiding light. Number 6, quality over quantity in gaming. 7 is favouring storytelling and narrative experience. 8 is rejecting the notion of perfect balance. And 9 is community and camaraderie. So do you think I'll be elected on these grounds then? I don't know what I'm being elected to, but do you think I've got a chance?
Absolutely.
Good
I don't
stuff.
think you have anybody competing with you either. So
because it's completely meaningless. Nobody cares. I'll be the Discord king or something like that. If there's, in fact, my username has a wee crown next to it because I created the server, so I guess I could kind of,
there you go.
If I wanted to get into royalty, I could be the king already.
Yeah, you've already got the kingdom. You're just laying down the rules now.
Aye, I mean, the nostalgia thing, like it's obviously the case for a lot of us because, like, of our age, and a lot of us have that common story of getting into it in childhood and having a long breakaway and coming back in. The period between 2018 to during the pandemic seems to be a real, like, loads of people just came back in at that point. And there was obviously lots of reasons for that, but I mean, I just, like I say, I love I love listening to folks' enthusiasm, and you know, they're going to dive in with both feet to the old world when it comes out. And for me, I don't want to sound smug or aloof, but I'm just content in my knowledge that, like, you know, I'm working on 2 15mm armies that, to me, like, they don't quite look the same as what the new stuff's going to come out, you know, for the old world, but like, they're still decent sized armies, and they look pretty good on the table. And to be honest, like, these 2 armies, you know, 6, 7, 8 regiments aside, I don't think I paid any more than like 120 quid for them. And then, you know, I've got all these rule sets that cost me less than a tenner. You know, I've got Mayhem, and, you know, that's Mass Fantasy Battles. Like, I think that was like 8 quid to buy that. So, I mean, I'm just like, the hobby's a buffet for me. Like, you know, a rule book here, a scenario there, a miniature here, a miniature there. It's all just, you know, part of a big diverse range for me, rather than diving into just, you know, this is this one gaming system, these are the miniatures, I'm going to go right into that.
Yeah, I do the resistance to hype is one of your edicts here on the manifesto, and I'm able to pretty easily resist hype just by reminding myself of what I already have. I've got all my Man of War models, and as much as I played Man of War, I still haven't painted all the fleets. Mm-hmm. I've got a bunch of Necromunda models, and Hero Quest, and Space Hulk. And as a matter of fact, I've also, during COVID, I collected a 4th edition Chaos Dwarf army. And I've got all of those set unpainted, and many of them unplayed for a long time. So I've got, you know, plenty to keep me busy. So I don't need to, there's no reason for me to buy anything more. And yeah. I have heard somebody say that one good thing about all of the hype and all the people that want to dive in deep on the old world is that it's probably going to be a booming secondhand miniatures market a few years later, because all these people have, you know, they've gone long and spent a bunch of money on buying the Bretonians or whatever, and they're never going to get around to painting them, so they sell them secondhand. So you can get them a lot cheaper then. But yeah, 120 quid, I think, will get you about maybe 6 mounted knights.
Yeah, so. Aye, it's frightening. And it's the, like you're saying as well, like, I mean, I've got enough these days. Like, I've got 28mm fantasy and sci-fi. I've got enough to play all the games I want to play, and I'll add tiny bits and pieces over time. But the thought of, you know, like, folks are buying entire armies in boxes or starter sets and that. And when I was younger and I saw these things in White Dwarf, I thought there'd be nothing better than buying that. And that predominantly because I would build it in one day very sloppily, like just snap it off the sprues and slap the polystyrene cement on and have it built. And didn't care about playing unpainted. But these days, having like a full army in a box, especially a plastic one in sprues, that would just stress me out, because I would just think of it as like there's just so much work to be done here, and I've already got stuff I'm needing to be done. So
yeah. I saw you recently got some what look like some Man of War scale ships delivered to you. Is that right?
That's right.
Those are Bretonians, right?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they're potentially Empire. So I made 2 orders. I think it was the Empire proxies that came, and I think I've got Bretonian proxies on the way, and I've got the Armada rule set. So I'm basing them on the bases that are appropriate for Armada. I usually wouldn't give a shit about base size, but it seems quite important in this game because of the way the ship turns and stuff. So I'm ordering up some MDF bases. I'm actually doing this a little different, because on the game I've seen it's like the clear acrylic, you know, the official bases, which if you just bang a ship on that, it makes sense because you could see the water below it, or the mat. But I've got an idea of what I want to do. I use this basin putty, and I kind of, you know, I've done it to make sort of rough ground and stuff like that. And I figured, well, if I do this same technique and then paint it blue and a bit of green and white dry brush, it might look pretty cool. So I'm just going to experiment with that. Because in Man of War, they're not based on Man of War, are they? They're just literally sitting on the mat. Is that right?
That's right. Some people put bases on them, but originally they're released with no bases, and they don't have bases on them on any of the magazine articles, White Dwarf articles, or anything like that. So
I take it that's not a pivotal part of the movement of the ship then, the base.
No, some of the models, like the Dark Elves, have some Sea Dragon models that are very, very narrow, and so they don't stand up very well. And so I put those on bases, and a lot of people will put those on bases. It doesn't really get in the way at all. There is occasionally I'll see debates on bases or no bases, and it changes how quickly models can get in contact with each other and that sort of thing. But it's another one of those sportsmanship issues. It really doesn't matter in the long run.
Aye. If you're playing the right person, stuff like that won't matter because people are reasonable enough to figure it out. But yeah, if you play somebody who wants, basically they should be playing chess because it'd be more appropriate for them. But I've got Chris on the podcast in a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to diving into a bit of Man of War with him and find out more about the remote game and stuff as well.
Yeah, so, you were saying your plans for basing those models. I have made a bunch of terrain for Man of War, and I used watered down wall compound. The stuff you would cover a nail hole with on your wall. I used that, just made it really thin, and it's really easy to make waves if you wanted to try that. Yeah. And I painted them all blue, and then I gave them a dark blue wash to get in the recesses, and then dry brushed them white. It's super easy, a lot of fun to do. It's fun to play with that stuff, and I think it looks good. So give that a try for sure.
Do you ever have an overlap between your job and hobby stuff, like materials or anything you've built or tried?
Not really. The biggest overlap I got is finding little bits for Necromunda terrain. I work part of my job. I work for the fire department, and half my job is working on the ambulance. I work on the fire truck one day and the ambulance the next day, and medical supplies have lots of interesting little gubbins, that you can scrap up for good-looking Necromunda terrain. That's detailed stuff. So that's the main thing. I'll dig some medical waste out of the trash can and put it on my terrain.
A human hand. That's what it is, like a bit of Norgal terrain, Realm of Chaos terrain.
Yeah.
Do you build a lot of terrain? Like, what's your ratio of working on terrain to working on miniatures?
Probably not much. Probably about 10% terrain. Usually what I'll do is I'll paint miniatures for as long as I possibly can. And then once I start getting kind of burned out on doing that, I'll switch to terrain because the process of making terrain is so much less detailed and nerve-wracking. You can get, kind of messy. I had my daughter, when she was 5, help me make some of the islands for Man of War, which was fun. You can, because you're using modeling clay and rocks and sand and stuff like that. So I find making terrain to be a really refreshing, like, palette cleanser for the hobby.
Has she done any miniature painting yet?
She has. I give her miniatures every once in a while. I let her. There's a narwhal model for Man of War that she painted probably about 4 times to the point where she decided it was her model, and we had to have an argument over that. But I got into 3D printing, so now I'm printing off cats and stuff for her to paint, and she's perfectly happy with that.
I had a paintbrush in my daughter's hand at the weekend there, so she's 2.5, and I'd been making a point of coming down, and maybe in an afternoon where we weren't doing much, I was just getting the paints out and doing something that I didn't need to concentrate too much on. So I was painting movement trays, nice and easy, and she's quite curious, and I've been giving her bits of paper to paint on and stuff. But I've got a bunch of these, it's the E4M orcs and, well, it's just orcs. It's like orc warriors and orc archers. They're like 20 pence each or something like that. So I figured, let's give her a wee shot. She wanted to paint, so put some cheap acrylics on her wee palette, and she started dabbing away. So it was just quite funny to see. Really good to see, actually. So that was her first painting session, 2.5 years old. So a few years yet, Golden Demon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I make a point whenever I'm painting over. I pack up all my paint stuff and take it with me whenever I go up to see my girlfriend and daughter, and then I set up a table in the living room and I paint. And eventually, at some point during my painting session, my daughter will come over and want to paint something, and I discipline myself to never tell her no. I might not necessarily want her at the table because she's going to be bumping it and I won't be able to do some of the painting I want. But I believe very strongly in being a good steward of the hobby, no matter what game it is you're playing, because I want her to have, good memories about the models and playing the games and everything, because eventually when I'm, dying or whatever, I don't want her to toss all those bottles in the bin. I want her to, keep what she wants and maybe get rid of the rest or whatever. But these games, will disappear if we don't pass them on to somebody else. So I believe pretty strongly, and that goes also with sportsmanship. If you're at a convention or something, you got to be polite, mind what you say to people and everything, and make sure that they have a good time during the game, because that's all part of being a good steward of the hobby and getting more people involved and enjoying the games and maybe giving yourself more chances at having a game with someone.
Yeah, that like really should have went in my manifesto. Sorry, being a steward of the hobby, passing the torch, setting a good example. There's a lot in there that you're totally right about. Yeah, because you wonder how many folks over the years will have been sort of flirting on the edge of the hobby and just had a poor experience that's put them off. Whether that is going into a games workshop and they've just found it a bit weird, or they've played somebody who's just been an arsehole. There'll be lots of that, and it'll put folk off, and that's really sad. So it's a commendable approach, and you're right. When you're painting, that it's new for me, obviously, with the age of my daughter, but it'd almost be easy to say, like, go and leave me in peace now, but I absolutely don't want to do that at all.
Yeah, I went to Adepticon back in, I think it was 2016 or 2017. It was before COVID whenever I went. And one of the most impressive things about Adepticon is seeing all of the games set up in the big room and seeing all the terrain that people have made. And I was wandering around and I was looking at, it was a Warhammer 40,000 game. I don't know what rule set was being used, but they had those giant Titan models. They're like 3 feet tall and they cost like $4,000 a piece. You know what I'm talking about?
Is it like the Titans for 40k or?
Yeah, but they're like full size. They're like the same, the correct scale for what you would be using your 28 millimeter models for.
Yeah.
So they're these things. I think it's Forge World that makes them. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but they cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and it takes years to paint them up. But anyways, I was looking at this table and it had a couple of them set up, and I was admiring the terrain and a model, and I asked the guy that was setting up, man, what are the movement rules for this thing? And he turned around and gave me a look like I had just walked up and took a shit on the table. He just absolute disgust. He's like, well, first of all, I wouldn't. And then he I guess he saw my facial expression and he changed his tone a little bit and tried to explain it to me. But man, what a turnoff for that game. Like, I just had zero interest from that. Just went from interested to absolutely not interested at all anymore in that game. So, yeah, I think being a good steward is pretty important.
Yeah, the first impressions and the way you're coming across and that, like, to go back to the guy, did he just mean, well, you obviously don't use these? Is it more just a terrain piece?
Apparently, as from what I understood, is that you put it on the table and then it doesn't move. Once you put it on the table, you've got line of sight on everything. So after that, you just work out
Yeah, you just
the
shoot.
shooting and the damage, which is weird because you don't really need the model. What's the model there for other than to show off?
Yeah, you could just put a couple of like a pair of Nike Air Max on the table, you know, that the Titan's here basically, or stand on the table yourself and just make shooting noises.
Yeah, matter of fact, they had when I took a photo of it before I asked the guy a question, and I made sure in the photo to get they had a bunch of 2-liter bottles of soda on the table that they were planning on drinking while they played this game, and I made sure to get those in the frame so you could see the scale of the model.
Yeah, it'd be better dressing up as the Titan and just standing on the table. Cheaper.
Yeah, that'd be funner.
So as we approach the end of the episode, Cam, you got anything else you wanted to bring up? Anything you wanted to share or point to or anything like that?
I want to say I think that hobby parenting thread in your Discord is probably my favorite one. I've painted a few pictures I've posted a few pictures of my kid games that we played in there. They're great memories, and it warms the corners of my heart to see other people, sharing the hobby with their kids and everything. I love that thread. Love when people post in there.
Aye, no, it's great in there. It's just on a whim I created that because, folks had been kind of sharing stuff that they were doing with the kids. And Dr. Spork, who's been on, I loved his colouring in a Rogue Trader. He's basically turned the Rogue Trader book into a colouring in book with his wee one. So there's just loads of really cool stuff in there. I seen your wee girl had a copy of one of the Osborne books as well. That's a nostalgic blast for the past. Was that a Christmas present?
Yeah, it was. I think it was your Discord that I saw someone mention that.
I mentioned them. So,
okay.
Yeah. I'd seen them in the bookshop.
I loved it.
Again.
I like the artistry in there. It's pretty neat. And every time we've been reading it slowly, we read it a couple pages at a time, and I explain to her how the Medusa works and how they, what the creatures are and everything. So every time, at least once per day, she comes down and says, will you read me some more of that book? So it's been fun. That's
great. Because I'm sure there was 3 of them. Like I used to, when I was wee, like primary school, my granddad would get me on a Friday and we'd go to the library and I would rent those books like one after the other on a 3-weekly basis. And he would always say like, are you getting that one again? Are you? We've got a library full here, but you're getting that one again. But it was like one was ghosts and the supernatural, one was aliens. I can't remember what the third one would have been then. What one is it you've got? Is it like Myths and Legends or that?
Yeah, yes, it's Legends. It's Ulysses and Hercules.
That must have been the third one, yeah.
Yeah.
Aye, because you've got UFOs and ghosts are the other 2.
Yeah, she's enjoying them. So.
Aye, they're like beautifully illustrated. Like it's that kind of old school illustration.
And the violence is just about right, I think.
That's a great quote. The violence is just about right.
It's not super gory or anything, but you got there's an image of Skylo with a couple of dudes in her mouth that she's eating up off of the ship. So yeah, it's not completely censored as much as some children's book are. So
I'm reaching into a dark corner of my memory here, a dusty corner of my memory, but has the book you've got, has it got the Lambton worm in it?
No, I don't think so.
I was certain that was in the Myths and Legends. It was basically, I'm sure, the Northeast England back in the medieval era, and this big worm, big monster worm was in a lake, and this knight, his way around it, because I think what was happening, it was one of these myths where they chopped bits of it off and it would just regenerate, and this thing was terrorizing the community. So the hero, he wore a suit of armor, but it was all spiky. So the worm come out the lake and tried to wrap itself round him, and obviously he couldn't chop it up because it just regenerated. But for some reason, when it wrapped around him and got all impaled, that did the trick. So I may be butchering the story, But the Lambton worm.
Do you remember what color the worm was?
No, that's
in the illustrations.
That's because deleted from my memory.
She and I haven't finished the book yet. We've got maybe a few pages left, and she's been keeping track of the monsters that are pictured on the cover of the book, and because she wants to see, which monsters we've gone over and which ones we haven't. So maybe that one's at the ending of the book, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Imagine I've spoiled it for you now, and you're like, I know what happens here. Even though that is literally the picture, is the one wrapped around the guy with the spikes.
Gotcha. No, it's got the Hydra, the 9-headed Hydra, and that Hercules slays, and that's what he dips his arrows in for poison, and then. But no, not the worm that you're talking about. But who knows? Maybe I just haven't gotten to it yet. Aye,
well, no, it sounds like an enjoyable book. I'll maybe pick up a couple of copies of them in the near future as well. I don't know if my wee one's quite ready for that yet, but she's enjoying Labyrinth, so there's hope.
Yeah, we tried to get my daughter to watch Labyrinth the other week, and it was a flat no. She did not like the look of David Bowie at all.
No, not a fan. That's a pity.
So maybe next year.
Yeah, 5 times for us over the holidays. We
good God.
Tentatively, I'd showed her Magic Dance on YouTube, and she became obsessed with that. And I was saying to my wife, like, I kind of want to show her, and it was temporarily available on Prime, so I was like, I kind of want to show her the film, but I'm scared she'll just. I thought I couldn't remember it because it had been so long since I'd seen it, but I worried it was maybe a slow start and it was going to put her off, or it would be a bit too creepy for her. But Bowie's in it pretty quick, and then you're in the labyrinth quite quick, and she didn't find it scary either, which was good because. She is a bit chicken-hearted at times, but she loved it and she wanted to watch it every night. Knows all the characters now. She's got a film poster of it in her room. I got her a wee book, like a wee pop-up book that it's educational as well. It like teaches you left and right and stuff like that. So that's a Labyrinth book. So she's full in now, fangirl. I'm getting stick for my wife for indoctrinating her, but.
Yeah, I saw somebody on your Discord linked the Labyrinth. I think it's like a board game or an RPG.
Yeah.
That is right up my girlfriend's alley. She would love that, so I'm probably gonna get that for her eventually.
It looks brilliant, doesn't it? It's River Horse, so that's Alessio that's been involved there at least. So that looks really cool. I'll hold off for a few years, but that'll definitely be on my radar in the future.
Yeah. So you got those models, the ones off Etsy. You got those for the Armada game. That's right.
Yeah, and I got Bowie off Etsy too. Now that you mention it, I got a 3D print of Jareth holding a crystal.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, nice.
I've started beating that up.
I'll be interested in hearing how the Armada game plays, and if you ever want to try a remote game of Man-O-War, just hit up me or Chris Snyder, because both of us are doing them on a fairly regular basis, so we can watch. But it'll take a few hours. You'd have to set aside 3 or 4 hours to be able to do it. But if you ever want to try that, just let us know.
That'd be cool. And
that goes for anybody on your Discord.
Yeah, I get involved. Yeah, it's a great wing to the game. It's a great opportunity to get a game as well for folks. I'll be dressed as a pirate when I play. It'll be really awkward.
I won't like that. Just keep your camera off. You can dress whatever you like.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we'll leave it there. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, though. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I do appreciate your time. And
thanks for the invite.
Yeah, and I look forward to catching up to see how you've got on finishing that book and what you're painting next. So keep up the good work.
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please do share it with someone else you think might enjoy it too. And be sure to check out our Discord community of like-minded hobbyists, which you could find at bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. It'd be great to see you in there.